This hour is brought to you by Jeremy Temple Law Office of Bloomington. Personal injury, criminal, business, whatever you need, Jeremy Temple Law Office will get you taken care of.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Well, come on along and welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Coy O'Leary here on this Monday, February 9th. Man, welcome in. There is plenty to talk about, Todd Leary. Todd Leary, my running mate here alongside Jake, keeping us on the track. Man, big doings over the weekend, Todd. There's no reason to talk about anything other than it was a magical night or afternoon at Simon Scott Assembly Hall on Saturday.
Yeah, it was the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly ended up being the game, unfortunately. But all the festivities and everything with it was worked out great. I know we talked about it a bunch on our post-game show, but it was closure. I hate to be cliche and say it that way, but it truly was closure for a lot of fans and former players. And, I'm glad that I got to be a part of it. It was cool.
Yeah, it was funny because there's people who still like, I don't believe it till it happens. And there's a lot of truth to that. Because
let me tell you this.
That could have blown up at any second.
There is no question about it. So I got there about an hour and a half early before tip-off, and he was already there, surprisingly. I figured it would be one of those, he rolls in 5 minutes before we go out on the floor. But he was already there, and you have to give a lot of credit to Karen, his wife, and Patrick, especially his son. I can't believe I just called him Patrick. I've never called him Patrick before, but Pat, Pat he came into town all week and was here basically to make sure that this all happened. And so, there's a few former players, Pat especially, and then Quinn Buckner and Randy Whitman and Brian Evans, and those guys were, hugely responsible for a lot of the logistics and details. But, it happened. I'm glad that it happened. And like I said on the show, it's good to kind of close that door and be ready to move on. Now we got to get this team rolling.
And something that's being missed, though, is, and you mentioned it and you brought it up, but this is also closure for Pat Knight, who has been estranged just as long as his dad has been out of loyalty. And you talked about it the other day, a loyalty to his dad, and who wouldn't be.
For sure.
But this opens up the opportunity now to bring that extension of Bob Knight still here. I mean, now Pat can come back and when he has the opportunity and feel welcome and feel like he can come back and there not be any weird feelings about it.
Yeah. And you want to know this is how deep that really runs. And so and the weird dynamic of it is, once it was talked about a long time ago, it's not like at family reunions and Christmas and Thanksgiving, they talk about, hey, IU still sucks, and I hate that place. I mean, that's not it's just not been discussed in a long time, I'm sure, within the family. But, Pat took the stance a long time ago. I support my dad 100%, and I won't go back until my dad goes back. And, once you make that stance, it's kind of hard to go back on it and get away from it. And so Pat even made the statement, this is how deep it really goes, is Pat even made the statement, I can finally start wearing IU gear again. So for 20 plus years, he's not even worn IU hats or sweatshirts. And I mean, you want to talk about a person that probably has the coolest IU stuff there ever was. I mean, it's Pat. So, I mean, we'll just see how many cliche statements I can use today. But I mean, it's a weight off of his shoulders, and you could just tell how excited he was. And Pat's not a hugely excitable person. How excited he was to kind of get that monkey off their back and move on with it. Well,
he's got a pretty nice new jacket he can wear.
Yeah, we got some badass jackets, that's for sure. They were really nice. And, there are 98 players that have been recruited by and not transferred or left during Bob Knight's tenure at IU.
Dude.
And I think there was like 55 of us there.
Do you know the value of what these jackets are going to be one of these days? I mean, this is specifically made for the return of Bob Knight on one day with special specific players. I mean, you better pack that thing in a vault, man.
Yeah, Coach wore his the rest of the day that day. Otherwise, I would have tried to get a hold of that thing on his way out. He set it down. I'd have had it.
I was talking about all of them, not his,
I know,
but you're thinking even smarter ahead than I am.
I'm just teasing, but it was fun. It was neat to see. Like I saw a picture of him at, they were honored at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. Both he and Coach Katie were honored at Bankers Life Fieldhouse later in the day, and I saw he even still had his jacket on at that point. So that was kind of cool. He was pretty proud of it, I think.
Yep. Tim said, great place to see. No, what did he say? Pat was coaching at Lamar and asked his dad if it was okay with him. He said, how much are you? I'm not sure what you're saying here, Tim. Anyway, I'm going to have to skip that one. But yeah, Pat Knight coming back, that allows him to come back. But also there's other players that were kind of silently boycotting IU, I think, Todd. Some prominent names in the history.
I mean, here's the thing. So you can look at it as loyalty. You can look at it as blind loyalty, or there just wasn't a reason to rock the boat. But when Coach was not happy when players didn't just boycott. When players, I know. I mean, you've heard me talk about my conversations with him back when I was doing the radio at IU, and they were not happy that I was still associated with the university. I mean, they wanted true loyalty to where, we all walked away from it. And I think that was just, anger and disgust at how it happened. None of us like how it happened. I don't think the people even did it like the way that it happened, but that's just the way it was. And that's, there's nothing we can do about that now. And I think a lot of players have been, a lot of the big name, especially late 70s and early to mid 80s players, have just kind of not made any effort to come back because, really all you're going to do is piss Coach off at that point. And now everyone can see, especially in the health that he's in and all that all that's gone, all that's out the window, and they can visit their alma mater as much as they want to.
Yeah, so it does so much as far as closure. It's not just the Bob Knight part; it's the entire. And you've talked about this as well. That the fraternity that is Indiana men's basketball and the players that participated in that, they don't have the group that you wish that it was, and a lot of people wish that it was, and other places have. And this is probably the way of getting that headed in that direction a lot faster than anything else.
Yeah, we're as dysfunctional as the Kardashians when it comes to to the former player fraternity alumni group. I mean, we just it's always kind of been the older guys. I don't want to say versus the late 80s and 90s guys, Bob Knight's last couple of groups, but there's just never been a tie between all of us. Whenever events are taking place and things happen, it just seems like, especially since Coach hasn't been involved, there's always a reason why guys can't come back or don't come back or have something going on. And I truly think that'll open up now. I think there'll be a lot more of the 70s and 80s guys that will come back. I mean, like Joe Hillman and guys like that are, they come back regularly. They are great for the program and great. They're kind of the bond in between the 80s and 90s guys, those guys who, Jamal Meeks, who came in late 80s. And so, I mean, it'll just open up a lot. I think you'll see a lot more players at a lot more games from now on.
Now, there were a couple that weren't there that I was a little surprised by. Now, we know Pat Graham and Damon Bailey, they were at their son's high school game.
And would have both for sure been there.
Oh, and it's sad. How much does it suck that it was going on at the exact same time? Because high school games usually happen at night. Why that one was in the middle of the afternoon, I have no idea. And I'm a little surprised the hell out of got that thing changed. I would have changed it. But, oh, well, it didn't. But there were some people like Steve Risley. I was surprised that Riz wasn't there, and I haven't talked to him. I'm sure he's way out in California, so it's not just that easy to travel. I mean,
and I said that I said it on the post game show, and we couldn't talk about it all last week. I know you and I knew about it all last week, but we weren't going to jinx it, and we weren't going to be the reason why it got to be too big, and he didn't end up coming. But guys paid their own way to get here. This wasn't, and I'm not saying that like it should be differently. I'm just saying like. Yeah, we found out about it real late. I mean, I know we found out about it, just barely a week over before it was going to happen. And for guys to get flights from California to get to Bloomington that quickly, flights were upwards of $1,500. Yeah. So, I mean,
he hated to miss it.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
And you hate to see someone of that caliber.
Where's Kent Benson? Guys like that. Like I thought Kent Benson, I really hoped he had been there. He's had a lot of personal tragedy and things going on in the last few years, and I would have loved to just been there to give him a big hug and let him know if he ever needed support or anything, he can always call on us. But everybody likes Benson. Everybody, there's just a Landon Turner. I wasn't sure where Landon Turner was, but he wouldn't miss something like that. He's back at Assembly Hall all the time. So, there's a few guys that I wasn't quite sure. It just had to be logistics and the timing of it.
Yeah, but man, what a turnout though. In the end, I mean, and the range of players, we talked about this. If you haven't had an opportunity to listen to the post-game show, you need to go back and listen to it. It was just an awesome day with some incredible special guests, starting with Kirk Haston, Brian Evans, Colin Hartman, Tyra Buss, and the incomparable, the shot, Keith Smart. They all sat down with Todd and talked a little bit, and I did laugh, and I cannot wait till I'm going to have Brian Evans on fast just to laugh at you, because he was giving you grief that he sat down to talk to Todd. He was courteous enough to do so for us, and he was like, he was telling afterwards, he said, he gives me the bum rush, and I look up, and Keith Smart, he goes, he's getting rid of me. I'm getting bumped for Keith Smart. And I'm like laughing, thinking, no, not really. I go back and I look at it and I time it. Do you know how long Brian Evans was on?
3 minutes, probably. I don't know.
It was 6. You got him on for 6 whole minutes.
Okay, good.
He was on for 6 whole minutes versus 26 for Colin Hartman. I think.
Well, that's Colin Hartman. Hey, I mean, you.
Oh no, trust me, Brian Evans could have went on all night.
Yeah, but it's just different. I mean,
I'm
Brian
just
Evans,
kidding, but it's just funny. No, it was funny. It was just a hilarious. I got to be honest with you. I'd have done the same thing. We don't get Keith Smart in it.
I wasn't going to have. I can have Brian come on a lot. Keith Smart's not back in town that much, so I was going to make sure he didn't show up and leave before I got an opportunity to get him on. But
he is the shot.
Plus, it's Brian, and Brian knows. I know Brian will say something, and I'm totally fine with that. Brian and I are in a position where he'll give me grief about it for a long time, but it'll be fine.
But grateful for all those folks coming out and sitting in with us on the postgame show. If you haven't had a chance, go back and listen to that thing. It's on Facebook Live. It's a great fun listen. But
yeah, it was fun. It was neat to have those guys in there. So thankful for Keith for coming in there. I know a lot of the guys. So Isaiah and Whitman and Quinn and those guys. Man, if they didn't have the thing to do up in Indianapolis later that night, they would have all been there. Everyone and Yogis, we've got to give a lot of credit to Chris Martin and Nathan Finney and the whole Yogis group and Finney Hospitality Group for everything. They provided us with appetizers and blocked off that whole area. I was trying to get as many guys to get in there and sign the wall as possible, but if it hadn't been for the Pacers event happening later on, we would have had a lot of those 1976 to 81 players in there, but it worked out good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Brad and Jasper hits us on the text line, which you can do as well. 812-269-6367. That's 812-269-6367. But he said that BNL Evansville Memorial game was in the afternoon due to the girls sectional championship.
Yeah. And that was the case all over the state. I mean, my son Ben for Carmel played a 3:00 game in the afternoon up in Fort Wayne.
Just horrible timing.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's where people have to understand, okay, this was all put together in a week.
No. Yeah, it's just bad luck.
Right, it is. I mean, it's not been timed all year long.
What are the odds that on that day, not one but two former players' sons will be playing each other, and 30 minutes away, no less?
Yeah, right down the road. If the game had been an hour later, they could have made it for a little bit.
Well, it was a tremendous day, man. It's tremendous day. Now, the one thing that's lost, and we'll talk about later in the show, there was a game that was going on that had some major importance, man. And wow, we'll get to that when we come back. We've got the great Don Fischer joining us here in a little bit, but there's plenty to talk about in regards to that. Going to talk about the net rankings. Indiana continues to drop in that. IU's guard play. Jared Odell sent out a tweet. I don't know if you saw that. We're going to talk about that. He said, mark my words, there's a cancer or two on this team. Had one in 2001. When he left, our world got a whole lot better, and I'm not talking about Kirk Haston. So there's a voice of experience talking about team chemistry.
You do the math.
That's it. There you go. So she made it kind of easy. Hey, man, we got a ton more coming up. The voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, joins us next. Mike Schumann's on the program today as well. Plenty to get to. Stay tuned. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Coyle and Larry. We're back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Ryan Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make it tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is A.J. Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
This is former Indiana basketball player Brian Evans, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Don Fischer is brought to you by Jeremy Temple Law Office of Bloomington, located on the square at 123 South College Avenue on the southwest corner. Call 812-336-7229. Personal injury, criminal, or business. Jeremy Temple Law Office of Bloomington will get you taken care of. And now, here's Don Fischer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary here on this Monday. And now one of the highlights of our day, certainly the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, Don Fischer. The great voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer. Don, how are you doing, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
I cannot complain. Nothing big over the weekend happened, I'm assuming?
No. It was kind of a non-committal weekend.
It's wow. There's no way you don't start with one of the most incredible things that's probably happened on the IU campus in quite a while. The return of Bob Knight, certainly quite a spectacle and a scene that brought tears to the eyes of young and old alike. Don, it was a crazy scene.
Well, very emotional for a lot of people, no question about that. Bob Knight returns after 20 years of animosity towards the university, and obviously we felt like this was coming for a little while. It's been rumored for several weeks that Bob Knight was going to return for a game this year, and certainly on Saturday it happened as Indiana celebrated the 1980 Big Ten championship team and a reunion for those guys, 40 years. Led by Mike Woodson and Isaiah Thomas and Randy Whitman and Ted Kitchell and Butch Carter and Ray Tolbert, Landon Turner. All those guys were a part of that 1980 Big Ten championship team that went through so much turmoil that year with injuries, especially Woodson, who underwent back surgery in December of that year and came back late in the season to help lead Indiana to that title. So that team was being celebrated, and of course then it was announced that, well, it wasn't announced that Bob Knight was coming back. We learned that that was going to happen. Nevertheless, that took place with so many of the former players under Bob Knight from the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, all returning to celebrate his return to the Assembly Hall. And honestly, it was bittersweet watching Bob Knight come out on the floor, greeted by the crowd, and his health issues are obviously things that we've known about for some time, but he looked. I think he just didn't look good in that sense, but you could tell how excited he was to be there and the reception that he got. I don't know if it surprised him, but without question, him coming back was so emotional for so many people. Especially the fan base, especially for those former players. And without doubt, it was a special moment when he came out on the floor on Saturday at halftime. They played a video about him and his career at Indiana, how great it was. And there are no questions about that. His controversial, the controversial coach that he was for so long and so many years at IU, did not offset what happened on Saturday, because without doubt, he's one of the great basketball coaches that's ever coached the game, maybe the greatest at the college level. And I say that not because of the number of wins, because he doesn't own that record anymore, but the way he went about his business of coaching his basketball team, the intellect that he had to pick teams apart, to adjust during ball games, to get teams prepared for whoever they were playing, and to take probably lesser talent than most teams, although you would argue that the 76 and 81 teams both had probably as much talent as anybody in the country those particular years. But without doubt, he had so many great ball clubs, and so many of those teams were not the most talented, and they still were able to win because of his coaching genius. So, like I said before, I think very emotional for the fan base, very emotional for the players that were there, and there were so many of those players from all of those different eras, in addition to the 1980 Big Ten Championship Ball Club, and it was special. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and the choreographed the problems you have to go through of getting all of those people together, because we were talking about a group of people that span decades, Don, of a group of players that span generations. Isaiah Thomas, the guys from the 70s, 80s, 90s. It was incredible, and a group that Hoosier fans may not get to see again ever of that magnitude. It was just an amazing scene.
Well, certainly not. They won't all be there at the same time probably again. You're right. That's exactly true. And some of the greatest players that have played at Indiana University, and that 76 team, which still is the last unbeaten team in college basketball, had so many of those guys that were on hand for this particular game, for this particular moment. And those guys, along with the kids from the 80s and the 90s, it was just special. And I think the one thing that I would say about it, I think it brought closure for not just the players with Bob Knight returning to Assembly Hall, but with the fan base, the Hoosier Nation, so to speak. Everybody wanted to see this happen. Bob was the only one that could make it happen in the sense of him returning on his own, and he did that on Saturday, and I think everybody is really appreciative of that happening.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. It allows the closure. It allows people to kind of bring things back together, and the healing, and it's something that's needed to happen for a long time. And all that stuff's in the past. It's just good that it has happened, and it can help the program, help the school, help the university. It's just great in every way possible.
Yeah, there's no question, and like I said, closure is probably the best term to use for this because of the chaotic and animosity-laden way things ended at Indiana under Bob Knight's tenure, and it was a tough thing at that point in time, without question. I think it kind of split apart the fan base in some respects. There were those people that thought Knight should have been terminated long before he was, and then those who thought that there's nothing that he did that was that bad that should have gotten him fired. And honestly, you can look at it however you want to look at it. It was just a very difficult time in the era of Indiana basketball. At the same time, Coach Knight, with all his greatness as a basketball coach at IU, never enjoyed that same kind of success anyplace else he was at. Not at Texas Tech after he left Indiana, and not at Army before he came to Indiana. So you could look at it and say that was just a special 29 years he spent at Indiana University, and finally for him to come back and celebrate that with his former players, just from my perspective, it brings closure to the program.
Absolutely, but it was such a gigantic event that it was almost lost that there was not only a game, but a very, very important game going on for the Indiana Hoosiers.
Yeah, and that was not did not come out. I think they have in the last couple of contests with that physicality and with that toughness on the boards, and this team ended up getting beat 74-62 by their arch rival in a ball game that I think after halftime, I'm not saying that the crowd wasn't still into it to some degree, but it didn't seem to have the same energy level. And I don't think the players have the same energy level in the second half. At least Indiana players did not. It was just different. And I'm not saying that that Coach Knight's return had anything to do with that, because the players have to generate their own energy. But at the same time, you just felt like it was a different atmosphere after the halftime presentation, and that took place. And I'm sure the players, because they were not a part of that, I'm talking about the current players in this Indiana basketball team, but they could hear the cheering and all that was going out underneath the stands or in the stands, because their locker room is underneath, obviously, that particular area over there. So they can hear what's going on out there to some degree, and they knew it was a special moment when Bob Knight returned. So I don't know. I don't know how much that affected the Indiana basketball team, to be quite honest with you. I just know that this basketball team right now is not playing with the edge and the ferociousness that they have to play with to beat teams in this league at this juncture, especially with the schedule that they've got coming up. And they've got to find a way to return to that physicality and that toughness factor that we saw in so many other ball games this year. Even though they lost to that Maryland team a couple of weeks back, they were right there. They had that game won and obviously let it get away from them in the last minute of the contest, giving up a 7-point lead at that juncture. But this team played great in that ball game. They played great against Michigan State in the game leading up to it, and we haven't seen anything like that in the last 3 ball games that they played.
Yeah, and you mentioned the physicality that they've lost, and man, this is about as bad a time as any to be battling that, because coming in, you've got Iowa and one of the, if not the best player in the country in Luka Garza, who is a physical specimen.
Well, there's no doubt, and he's playing the best basketball he's played in his career. He's averaging a double-double. He's probably right now the odds-on favorite to be the Big Ten Player of the Year. He's playing that well, and then they've got a bunch of shooters around him that can knock down threes, and he's a guy that can knock down threes as well. They are playing extraordinarily well. Now, they got blown out by Purdue last Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember which day it was exactly, but they got pounded by Purdue in that ball game. And right now, Purdue looks like a team that's on the road to getting back to where everybody thought that they would be at the beginning of this season, and would be a factor because they were struggling to shoot the basketball from outside. And not only did they play well enough to win on the road against Northwestern, now they played well enough to win on the road against Indiana, and they blew away an Iowa team that was ranked 17 when they faced them last week. So they're playing some of their best basketball, especially at this time of year when you have to be playing your best, and that's where Indiana is not at right now, and they've got to return to that if they hope to have a chance to finish strong here in the Big Ten race.
Absolutely. Don, I cannot thank you enough for joining us here, especially on the heels of such a momentous weekend at Indiana. It was incredibly special. There's no one that hey, Hoosier fans wanted to be on the mic than you. It's kind of, you were there at the beginning, and to be there at the end it was very special for the fans as well.
Well, I don't know about that, but I appreciate it. Obviously, I was with Coach Knight for 27 of his 29 years at IU. I wasn't here for his first two seasons, but I experienced a lot with the coach, and without question, I mean, he's a great basketball coach, and that era, in my opinion, was the best era that Indiana's ever enjoyed in college basketball, and we haven't been there for a long time, and that's where I want to get back to before I retire.
Absolutely not, and we all want to see it, Don. Absolutely. Well, thank you, sir. I cannot thank you enough. We appreciate you as always, and I hope you have a great week. We'll see you on Thursday as Indiana takes on the Iowa Hawkeyes.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
You betcha. There's the great Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers here on Indiana Sports Beat. We're back with more right after this. I'm still afloat. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hey, this is Jordan Halls, former Indiana Hoosier. Keep up with Indiana sports on Indiana Sports Beat.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
You know, I'd like to not focus on the whys, but he's here. I think, you know, a lot has transpired over the last couple of years. He's moved back here. He's happy back here. And I just think at this point in his life, it was time to not only let the fans see him and respond to him, but as we saw today, he loves the fans and he responded to them. So it's not, I don't want to get into why now. It was one of the greatest and emotional things for me personally.
Me too.
I don't know if we'll see something like this again in college basketball. That you know, he came back. This is where he belongs. He moved back here. I told him when I called him, I said, you know, you're back here for a reason because this is where you belong. And I said, you need to come back with us. You know, we love coming back and seeing each other in these reunions. This is my second or third one back, and I just told him it doesn't mean anything to us anymore if you're not a part of it, because we came here because of him. It wasn't because of the weather. And as I told Coach, as much as the academics was a big part, it wasn't because of the academics. We came here to play for Coach. And this was a great day for me. Emotional. This is one of the best highs I've had in a long time.
That's former Bob Knight player, Indiana player, NBA player, NBA coach, Randy Whitman, talking about Bob Knight and Bob Knight's return. And it's an emotional thing, Todd. It's touched so many players. I mean, we know it's the fans, of course, but the players, the guys that played for him, there's a lot of closure for a lot of guys, yourself included in this. It was just it goes so much further than so many people really know, I think.
Yeah, it really is. And it's, you know, Randy makes a really funny point. And I say it on our show all the time that when guys choose a school and choose a program, there's a bunch of different factors that go into it. And there are a bunch of different things that you choose it for, the academics and the environment and the atmosphere and the facilities and all the different things. And I think there's probably a handful of coaches over time, over all of, you know, college basketball, that's really not been the case. I mean, you choose it for the coach and you choose it for, you know, what he's built as a program, which is, you know, all a part of him in general and the coach. And that Bob Knight is definitely one of those. And Randy made the statement, you know, we came there to play for Coach. I mean, I've told the story on our post-game show Saturday. Kurt Haston told the story. I mean, his recruiting took place in one phone call in the middle of the school day. They pulled him out of biology class, I think he said. Called him down to the principal's office, and Coach Knight was on the phone and said, talked to him for 45 seconds, telling him all the reasons why he wanted him to come there, and said, well, are you coming? And Kurt Haston committed over the phone to go to IU. I mean, it's just, that doesn't happen.
Wait, what? You mean he did not have
An official visit,
a big 7 o'clock show
big table,
on ESPN with a table and the hats.
We talked about that. We talked about all of that, and it's just no. I mean, you guys commit to go play for Coach Knight, and that was he earned that. I mean, that didn't happen in 1973 or 4 or 5. I mean, he earned that. He built that with what he had there. And, I heard an interview with Butch Carter on Dan Dockich's show. That was just a great interview on Friday talking about, he wanted to go to Indiana because of what that team did in 1976. And he got to visit and he saw what good people, what good people they were, what good, what Coach was creating. And he lived in the projects in Ohio and wanted to get out of that environment. And that's why he chose Bob Knight and Indiana University. I mean, you don't hear that in today's world. I mean, guys choose a place because they've got the best locker rooms and they've got the coolest gear and they wear the best shoes. And, just different reasons. And I'm not ripping people. I'm just saying Randy brought up a great point.
Played in the NBA. All that stuff, which don't mean anything.
And it was a different time. When you talk about our players different nowadays, I mean, it's become more of a business. When you say things like that, I shouldn't say when I say things like that, like I mean the whole business itself in general has changed, and these players look at things differently, and they should. I mean, things are different now, but back then, Quinn Buckner is probably the ultimate person. Joe Hillman, you could probably put in this category as well. Like those guys, you can talk about going there and sacrificing. I could have gone to a whole bunch of smaller schools and averaged 15 or 20 points probably. And instead, like I wanted to be part of something huge and gigantic and big. And so I probably went somewhere above my ability level because I wanted to be a part of that team atmosphere and contribute whatever I could. And I would have, if Coach Knight, I tell you, he told me to hand the ball to a guy on defense and just hand it to him because that's the equivalent of the turnovers that I had earlier in the game. I mean, I'll do whatever he told me to do.
I still love that story.
If he'd told me to punt it in the stands, I would have checked person punted that thing in the stands. So, I mean, it's just the sacrifice is awesome. What Randy Whitman and Quinn Buckner and those guys stood for, that's why I wanted to go there. I mean, Randy Whitman was my favorite player growing up, and Ted Kitchell was my favorite player, and then Steve Alford became my favorite player. Like, we all wanted to be what those guys were, and it just
is Indiana in danger of losing that forever right now?
I think college basketball in general has probably lost most of that. There's very few players that would choose. You might choose a place because of Coach K, maybe Calipari, just because of what he can do for you. Yeah, Izzo. I mean, you might choose it if Izzo calls a kid in Michigan and asks him to come there. I mean, he could probably do that over the phone. The kid's probably still going to take an official visit and all that, but he could probably get away with that. There's just very few coaches that could pull that off. But, this Indiana team is not, when you look at what Quinn Buckner said and that, he was willing to sacrifice in order for the team's benefit. Look at the roster at Indiana right now and tell me who fits into that category.
Yeah. You mentioned Dan earlier. Dan was one of the guys who was not able to be there. I think he was doing a game on ESPN on Saturday. So
yeah, we saw him on TV doing a game.
Not sure. I'm not sure. You think he would have shown up had he been able to? I don't know if he would have.
Yeah, I mean, I think he might have. I don't know if he would have or not. I know he would have certainly been welcomed. I know the guys would have loved to have had him there. I know. Well,
absolutely. Sure. I mean, yeah. There's no. I think the fans get worked up more than players do. I think players.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you know what? If you analyze everything Danny says, I mean, he doesn't say a lot that's not true.
I was going to say he's not lying. I mean,
he doesn't say a lot that's not true.
If you lie on radio, you kind of get in trouble.
He might not say stuff that people like, but but he doesn't say stuff that's not true very often or at all. For what I've seen, so
that's funny you say that because I see so many times the fanboys, fan people, fans in general, they don't want to hear the truth a lot of times. They just want to hear what they want to hear. But unfortunately, right now, what they want to hear is just not factual. And you can't, in good conscience, say it. And so it's, some people just don't want to hear what they want to hear. You're right on.
I mean, trust me, there is, I can just say it this way. That game Saturday, from a current from a current team standpoint, that game Saturday is a game you have to win. Now, I didn't super analyze it to the point of what I would do to make sure that you won in preparation and all that. I can just tell you it's a game in the Bob Knight era that, you have to win, and we would have won. And that's the difference right now. Archie, I like Archie. I love Archie. I love the program. I love all of that. I don't think the players are 100% bought in, and I don't think the players are doing the things that they need to do outside of game time to make sure they win.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on, and there's Tim hit us up on the text line with a question that actually goes right along with a stat I have today. He asks, why are we not driving the ball and getting fouled? We only had 14 free throw attempts by 3 players, 10 of them coming from Trace Jackson Davis. Talk about attacking the rim. Obviously, they're not doing that. I looked at this stat from guard play on Saturday. Indiana's guards produced 18 of 62 points, while Purdue's guards produced 50 of their 74 points. So obviously Indiana not getting much from the guards, which if your game is inside, there's understandable. And Indiana's is to that to a degree, but you still got to get some guard play to equal that and balance that out, or you don't have much.
So, yeah, and I said this on the postgame show. Like, we had so many festivities going on. We were doing interviews back at Cook Hall. I did not get to watch the game very closely, but I've watched it since then. And I can tell you, Purdue did exactly what you would expect Purdue to do. Matt Painter is a Gene Cady descendant, and they are a defensive-oriented team, and they study things, and what they do is just try to take away your strengths. And if you go back and pause the video and look at, you want to know why Indiana didn't drive very much? Because there was at least 4 guys and a lot of times 5 guys standing inside the lane for Purdue, and there's nowhere to drive. There's nowhere to go. Like, they were taking away the drive. They were taking away the driving lanes, and they were basically saying, hey, if you make enough three-pointers to beat us, so be it. And Indiana is not built and capable of doing that right now. And Indiana made some shots. I mean, you look at it. Indiana
they actually shot the 3 much better than they have most of the season.
They made some shots and that stuff. And that's exactly what Purdue said. We think you'll make some shots, but we don't think you'll make enough shots to beat us. And truly, they stuck to that, because if you look at it, Indiana was really the first 18 minutes of the first half. I mean, Indiana played just as well as Purdue. I mean, both teams made some mistakes. Both teams made some shots. Both teams were hanging right there. And Indiana had a 1-point lead, I think, maybe 25-24 or 26-25, right around there. And Purdue scores on 3 of their next 4 possessions, and Indiana doesn't. And all of a sudden, they're down by 6 and end up going down by 9 before halftime. And that's, what do you and I talk about all the time, Jim? Unless you focus on the first 5 minutes, the last 5 minutes of the first half, the first 5 minutes of the second half, and the last 5 minutes of the game, I mean, there's 20 or 40 minutes that have to be focused on. And you can even narrow those down to the 3-minute segments of each one of those. And there's 12 minutes that you just have to have a different focus than you do the rest of the game. And you can't make mistakes, and you have to make sure you score at a high efficiency rate. Purdue did it, and Indiana didn't. And that truly was the only difference in the game. Otherwise, the teams played dead even.
You nailed earlier in the season. You nailed Ohio State. You said something's going on there. Something's wrong. Something's happening. Then there comes suspensions. Then there comes DJ Carton taking a personal leave of absence. So obviously you nailed that. Yes, the other day, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, Jared Odell, former IU basketball player, tweeted, "Mark my words, there is a cancer or 2 on this team. Had one in 2001. When he left, our world got a whole lot better." Wasn't talking about Kirk Haston. He mentioned that because Kirk had left previously to go to the NBA, but that was not who he was talking about. And who he's talking about is not even relevant. But do you think that's what's going on, or is this just something different? They're not buying in. There's we got the people talking about, Archie's got to get his own players, and yeah, there's some truth to that, but there's only so much truth to that. It's hard to figure this team out.
Yeah, I mean, So looking at the Ohio State example of that, they had a switch this season. Like, you could watch them play early in the year, and they were playing kind of loosey-goosey. They looked like they were having a blast. I mean, we talked about when they got to number 2 in the country, they looked like they were having fun out there playing. And there was a time when somehow that switched, and you could tell that it was a struggle. Like they were not executing, and you could just tell they were not having as much fun. And it's not that difficult to see when you're watching a team, if you watch them pretty closely. And I try to watch them every Big Ten game that I can, so that I can, kind of analyze where Indiana's going to end up and all that. And, this Indiana team, to go along with what you're saying, I mean, Jared Odell put it out there, and he may know some things that we don't. I can't specifically say if what he's saying is talking about a certain player or two. I can't tell you who that is, other than I don't have any inside track as to know if something's wrong or not. I honestly just think these guys physically, or I should say, fundamental talent wise, they can't shoot the basketball, and they can't score from outside the lane on a consistent basis. And to me, it's as simple as that is blowing up into creating all these other issues and creating all this frustration with guys not being able to execute, what they need to do. And I'm going to say it simply because they can't score outside the lane, and teams don't have any problem figuring out a way to defend you. I mean, you want to watch this Iowa game on Thursday? They're probably going to play 90% zone this Thursday coming against Indiana. I mean, Indiana might score 95 points, but they also might be lucky to score 50 again. And it's that to me, I don't know that there's a cancer from the standpoint of an attitude problem, but I can sure tell you fundamentally they've got some problems.
Dr. J agrees. He said that's what I figured. What Odell said, too many cool guys, reference to what you
I'm
call
tired
them.
of the cool guy. I don't think that, he uses it as a cancer, and I hate to use that word, but he uses it as there's I think he insinuates there's a head case problem going on there. And, I don't consider the cool guy thing that I say all the time as a head case. I think it's just their
personal
demeanor.
decision.
It's just their demeanor. I think it's just how they are. And I want some guys that are not cool guys. I want some guys that don't care what their hair looks like. I want some guys that just come out there and
I hate to sound like this old man get off my lawn kind of thing, but the guys that play for the name on the chest, not the name that is or is not on the back.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And that's that we're going old school with a lot of references here today, but that's right on the money. That's it. I mean, guys who would sacrifice, like Quinn Buckner said, and do anything in order for the team to win. And I would not say we have 5 guys on the floor all the time that have that in mind.
And I hate to make this reference, but especially this particular player, but look at someone like Grayson Allen at Duke. I mean, no matter what his background was, he was a fighter, a scrapper. Yeah. Who was the biggest scrapper probably of all time, and people probably hate him more than anybody, is Christian Laettner. But he was probably the most competitive. After watching that 30 for 30 when it came out, all I gained from that was how freaking competitive this dude was. He was a freaking nut just because all he cared about was competing and winning.
When you're an athlete, as a person, most people would say they would prefer for people to like them rather than not like them. You'll get people like Bob Knights of the world, and some people would just say, hey, I don't care what other people think and all that. And a lot of times that usually means they do care more than the average person. But when you're a player, when you're a basketball player, and you are hated by everyone except for the guys that are on your team and they love you, you're a good player. You are the kind of player that everybody wants to play with, and that's just that Indiana doesn't have any of those guys. I think right now that are mean. They got guys that nobody wants to play with because, like I said, they're cool guys, and they're just. I don't know that you go in the foxhole with them. And right now, I'll tell you, like you give me Jamal Meeks and the two of us, I figure like we could battle anybody right now, old and fat and decrepit like we are. But I mean, we'll fight. We'll find out whether we're going to win or not.
Yeah, that's the one thing I think you can look at this team, and there is not a fighter on here. And I'm not talking about someone who's going out and starting trouble on the court. I'm talking about a guy who's fighting on the court for his team, fighting to win, fighting to do what he's supposed to do, fighting to lead, fighting in any way, stretch, or there's just no fight whatsoever that I'm seeing here. And that's the scary thing because it's a change. And this team is not playing how they were playing. They're not playing with the same vigor, the same intensity, the same love. And that's what scares you when you see that loss. You're like, okay, wait a minute. This is not physical ability here. There's a problem.
There was a play in the first half of the game, and it did not decide the outcome, but it tells me where guys' mindsets are. There was a loose ball under the Purdue basket in the first half of the game, and Indiana, the ball was on the floor, and no one, like, you want to see that one guy that comes in from like 20 feet away and launches his body and dives in after that loose ball and slides halfway across the floor because he was coming so hard at it. Indiana ended up having somebody get on the floor, but it was way after the time when someone should have dove in there and dove in the pile and got it. And that kind of defined for me where this team is. Like, they will do it, but it's not in their nature to go in there head first, banging whatever you got to bang and getting whoever out of the way and going and getting that ball. And that, to me, kind of summarized a little bit of where this team is and why they would lose a game like this one.
Yeah, it's certainly becoming an adventure in psychology.
It really is. Jim, I mean, these guys are talented. These guys, other than being able to shoot the basketball, Indiana has every piece you could want. Like they are. You're right. The psychology of it is what's keeping them from being good. I totally agree with you.
Man, we got tons more to get to here on Indiana Sports Beat with Coy O'Leary on this Monday. Mike Schumann's going to join us in the next hour. We got plenty more to talk about as Indiana drops in the net rankings as they come out as well. Stay tuned. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Coy O'Leary here on this Monday. We're back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
I'm not gonna sing, whoa, baby, honey, what's wrong with you?
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
This is James Blackman Jr., former Indiana Hoosier. Make sure you're keeping up with the Hoosiers on Indiana Sports Beat.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Coyle Lee with you here on this Monday. Got to hear from the great Don Fischer earlier talking about the festivities over the weekend. The return of Bob Knight to Simon Scott Assembly Hall. A crazy, crazy experience. We've talked about it in depth with Todd Leary, a man who was there for part of it for certain back in the day, and got to go through this. It was incredible. Mike Schumann's on the program today, by the way. He'll be joining us. The experience, Todd, of being in that group, let's put the Bob Knight portion of it aside. Isaiah Thomas, Keith Smart, some of the greats in the annals of Indiana basketball, Quinn Buckner. Man, just being in that group has to be so special because it is such a great fraternity, and being able to talk to those guys.
Yeah, I mean, here is this is a fun thing to be is, Scott Dolson broke it down to me when they called me about coming to the thing, and he broke it down and said, hey, look, there are only 98 people in the world invited to this party. I mean, he said, I'm not even allowed to, one, I'm not allowed to be there. Two, I'm not allowed to bring, he works at the university and is about as high up office as you can get athletically. And he's like, look, I won't even be there. Like they're not having anybody there that's not a player or his direct spouse. Like I wasn't even allowed to bring my kids. And, when you're a part of something that's that tight knit and cool, and the names of Bob Knight and those are part of the other 98 involved. I felt insanely honored. Here's the crazy part about all this. Look, I'm an Indiana fan. I am every young Indiana kid that stood outside in the snow and shot with gloves on. And we know there are, tens, hundreds of thousands of those kids. And I just got lucky enough and had just enough God-given ability and shot enough shots to be able to get to go there. And so I'm a fan. I grew up watching, that 1981 team is probably, I was 11 years old at the time. It's probably my real first recollection of that's what I wanted to do. I mean, that's where I wanted to go. And so Isaiah Thomas and Landon Turner and then Randy Whitman and Ted Kitchell and then the years. So you start getting to where obviously then I'm in high school and then watching Steve Alford and those guys that's what, that was the thing I loved most in the world, especially the basketball and athletic world. And I got to be a part of it. So yeah, for me, just it doesn't even make any sense. Like I'm living a dream when it comes to something like that. And, it was really awesome and cool. And I would, I just can't say enough about how excited I was to be a part of it.
And then the other guys, you see how important it is to them. Guys like Isaiah Thomas, guys like Mark Cuban, who showed up. I mean, the importance that people wanted to be there.
Cuban said he had not been inside Assembly Hall for a game since 1981.
Wow, and his name's inside the damn building.
Every
the Cuban Center.
Every piece of, I'm sure he's been in Assembly Hall. But not for a game,
right?
Because when they built that Cuban Center, I mean, heck, if you don't know what that thing's all about, try to take the time to go in there and check it out sometime because it is insane. It's so cool. But that's one of only like 40 arenas, including all professional arenas. It's only one of like 40 arenas that have that incredible 360, viewing stuff around there, and that's just because Cuban's the one that paid to have it there. So,
$5 million, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane that when you see Cuban coming back to a game, it's a big deal. He's not been there since 81. 40 years almost.
When he arrived, he came in the front entrance and came in right through those doors where all the windows are that looks down onto the court. He came down those bleacher stairs. I was on the floor, and I hear this roar go up. And I'm like, what the hell? Knight's here already? I mean, that was the first thought because this was like, wow, a swell. You could just hear it. and feel it swell up. And I turn around and I see Mark Cuban coming down those steps with a big smile beaming on his face. I'm like, holy crap.
Well,
And,
I was outside still by the student line when he got out of his car and walked up, and the student section outside still, but hadn't even been able to get in yet, was going crazy. So I know what that had to be like once he finally got in there. But it was just cool. Him and Sage Steele, and we all know Sage's loyalty and is an alumni of Indiana University and credits a lot of her successes with ESPN and all that to Indiana University. So, Sage is great, but you get those big names coming back, Cuban and Sage Steele. Obviously it's a big event. And then some guy named Coach Knight was there. So
yeah. It's kind of stuck in the middle there, but it's great to have Sage. It was fun. She hung out with us afterwards at Yogi's. We had Brian Evans and Keith Smart stopping by, and Tyra Buss and Colin Hartman and Brian Evans and
Kirk
Haston. I mean, and his wife is great to see. Kirk. I mean, you just what a great character. Cannot wait to have him on again. He's just
he is a riot. I'll let you do that interview because I'll be sweating and worn out by the time we're done with it.
He's the funniest guy ever. I don't think you've been around for a couple of years ago. I was doing I was at the Derby doing the show from Churchill Downs, and
I was on later that day, and I heard it.
You did? You heard that?
Yes,
was that the crazy? I have saved that. I replay that now every Derby year. The Friday before Derby, that gets replayed, but the fact that he did that was completely unplanned, unrehearsed. I had no idea. We're texting. I'm texting before. I was just trying to make a nice Indiana day out of the Derby Day thing and put an Indiana flavor to it, and just having some Indiana people pick their Derby horses. Well, he wanted to pick his own and pick his own name, and I'm like, yeah, you can do whatever the hell you want, man. So he makes it. He gives me this name. Then I said, well, how would this race go, Kirk? And then he calls. Yeah, he called the whole race. And if you heard it, you'd understand why it's so funny, because of the horse's name was Hoof Hearted. Say that 3 times real fast and see how that works for you. But to have Kirk Haston, he's just I swear, I call him the governor. I think he's going to be governor one day because
I do too.
He's got the greatest personality. He's a people person. He loves to serve. He's just that guy.
Yeah,
he
loves the state of Tennessee, and he is. I mean, if you ever wanted a politician, that's the guy. That's the kind of guy you want, because I don't think he could be swayed enough by money and outside people to.
He's salt of the earth, man. He's a salt of the earth guy.
He really is. Like I'm so proud he's a Hoosier. It's crazy.
He definitely he raises the bar for everybody. I mean, he's just one of those guys. And this is a guy who went through heartache. Man, he lost his mom in a tornado while he was here at IU. So he's dealt with a lot of tough times in his life, and what a great guy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Keith Smart, someone I had not had the opportunity to be around before. I don't know if I'm sure you probably have. But, he was the same. He was genuine and just as down to earth and as nice as he could be.
Oh, Keith is one of those people that, like if he's done something that's crazy. I mean, making that shot to win the national championship, teams win the national championship every year, but it doesn't always come down to one shot that's either a win or loss. I mean, that shot, they lose if he doesn't make it, and they win because he made it. So he's known forever. I get talked. People bring up me making 3 3-pointers against Duke all the time, and we didn't even win. I can't imagine if one of those would have been for the win.
For a national championship?
Yeah, it just doesn't even make any sense to me. So that's the level that he's on. And, he doesn't. He's just like talking to Jamal. He's just like talking to Lyndon. I mean, he's as good a guy as you get, and he'll talk to you about – you ask him a question about it, doesn't matter where you are or what's going on, he'll stop and talk to you and tell you all about everything. And he's just one of those people that is really, really fun to talk to and has an enormous amount of great stories about Indiana too.
And when we do the post-game show after the game with Todd Leary, we sit in front of the nice big court that's the wall at Yogi's. And, of course, we have the former IU player sign the wall. He cleared up some things when it comes to the shot with his signature on that wall, putting in the shot. Because you brought up a great point in the post-game show that today when we talk about the shot, these kids think that they're talking about Christian Watford.
Right. The watch shot. Which
the only B shot is.
I don't want to take anything away from the watch shot. It was cool.
Right.
I was at home. I can remember exactly where I was. I jumped
but
out
it
of my
ain't B
seat.
shot.
But I mean, at the end of the day, what did it win for him? It won him a game against their rival. I mean, yeah, they beat Kentucky. I'm so happy that he made it. But I mean, there's not hanging any banners over it. There's not anything. It's not near as big as the actual shot.
Yeah, and that was a shot, baby. That was for
but
the marbles.
People our age, you ask us, what's the shot? Everybody knows it's Keith Smart. You ask a kid that's in college right now, and he's going to tell you the watch shot. He doesn't even remember Keith Smart's shot.
Well, I mean, they get more play. It gets more play. If you look at halftime, they've got a contest running the watch shot, not the shot.
Yeah.
So
I'm with you.
It's perception is a funny thing, man. How the things fade a little bit, but I remember that damn shot. I remember it live.
I do too.
I remember exactly where I was. I remember what happened when he hit it. I jumped up where I was at a Steiner's in New Albany. I jumped up and hit my head on a lamp. I'll never forget it. It was March 10th. I think it was March 10th. It may have been that may not be the correct date, but I remember
it had to be later. It had to be later than that.
I was thinking it should be later, but yeah, it was just a great night. But anyway, seeing all those guys and the talent that was compiled there, Todd. I mean, think about all the NBA players, Olympic gold medals, Pan American medals, players that have played overseas, yourself, that have played professionally. The talent that was on that floor, oh my God, that was an incredible group.
Oh, it's just nuts. I mean, when you look at that Indiana team, compared to Syracuse, I mean, it's not comparable. I mean, that's Bob Knight at his finest winning that game, because that 1987 team, there's no way that team should have won the national championship. They were just that was coaching and players executing a game plan every game, because they were outmatched every game, no doubt.
And it was against a defense that has given people difficulty for freaking years. And if you don't think so, ask Tom Crean in 2013 how it worked for him when they were number one and they faced Syracuse in the Elite Eight and just got knocked out.
Well, it's funny because it's different, but I can remember, in one of our NCAA tournament games, we played against Temple. And Temple at the time had John Chaney, and they kind of played that matchup zone defense thing. And it was a version of what Syracuse did. And it's different, so you have to prepare for it differently. But I can tell you, it's also laughable when you have Coach Knight as your coach with it, because
he just tears it apart.
Yes, once you execute the way that he has you do it, it's laughable. And that's why. There was a few years ago, I think it was like when Cody Zeller was there, when didn't Indiana play Syracuse?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. 2013 in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah,
they got knocked out of the Elite Eight.
Yeah,
they were number one. They were number one seed.
Couldn't make a 15-foot shot inside the lane, and if they could have, if someone would have, they were so wide open it wasn't even funny. But that's a game that Coach Knight would have won that game. There's no doubt about it. And he had we just laughed because back in my day, Iowa played a lot of zone defense. Northwestern played a lot of zone defense, not like a Syracuse zone, but I mean, they played zone defense and they just became laughable. I mean, you can't play zone against Indiana, against emotion. I mean, we'll pick it apart in no time. So we
had the opportunity, Keith Smart, talking about Keith, he was on the post-game show, and you got the chance to talk to him. That was awesome. On top of that, you got to talk to a lot of great people in that post-game show. But to do those interviews and sit with those people who have been involved with this program, that's just special to see you two guys together.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, and Keith was great. And like I said, I've got it set up to where we'll get a bunch of interviews, because had they not had Quinn and Randy Whitman and a lot of those guys not had to go up to Indianapolis for the Pacer game later that night, Pat Knight, we'd had a lot more people on the show, but I set it up so that we can do some personal one-on-one interviews with them at a later date. So I got phone numbers. We'll be hooked up.
We're looking forward to it, man. Jake, I'm not sure if you're ready. If you've got Keith Smart when he was on with you, and you'd ask him what Bob Knight meant to him, and here's what he had to say.
I'll tell you, like I was talking with him today, a story that he had. He was putting me through a tough part, right, trying to get me to another level of play. But he was calling my parents and told them that, hey, I'm going to take Keith through some stuff right now. He's probably going to be calling you. And he remembered that story, and I told him that, and he said, yeah, I had a good relationship with your mom. And I wanted her to understand that what I was taking you through was going to help you later on in life. As you know, we all moved on from the plane here. We've gone out different careers, and we've had moments where no one was going to pat you on the back. So when the call came from Randy to come out here, we have an opportunity to be here. Those that could be here to come here for this day here. You see how many people showed up. You know. Then also they mentioned about just celebrating that 80-team Big Ten championship team. But they said, well, they reached out to all of us on that. And if you are available, we would love to have you here. Well, when everyone was available, we all came out because this thing is deeper. You know, obviously we had the championship, we won the national championship. But I can guarantee you, not one guy looks at himself and say that he's bigger than the program. You know, for those that didn't win one, for those that had a Big Ten championship opportunity but didn't get it, we don't look at someone because we won a championship and you didn't. We do. You know, you guys. But I'm saying you guys may, but we don't feel that way. You know, all of us feel. No matter where I go, from coaching, and someone in the area. You know, Jamal Meeks called me and said, "Hey man, I'm over in Jersey when I was in New York. Why don't you let's get together?" Well, all of a sudden, like, well, hey, when we get some time, I'll get together. You know, I'm out in California somewhere. One of the former players will give a call. Mark Robinson, who lives out in the Bay Area. All those guys that have played through all those times, this moment is for everyone. Not only just the fans, but also for each player that has played here.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,
there's the great
first off,
Smart.
Let me tell you this. When Jamal Meeks calls you and wants to go out and have a beer, it's not a beer. Okay. Yeah. So let me clarify one thing about what
lunch.
You just said. Yeah. Pack your breakfast for the next morning with some Dramamine for your belly, because it's going to be a long night when you hang out with Jamal. I can assure you of that.
Oh, I guarantee you. You can tell he goes 100 miles an hour no matter what he's doing.
I mean, if that guy can drink beer, I'm not a big drinker. I know you know, and I sat next to Jamal all the time that we were there together at IU in the locker room, and my blood alcohol content would go up just based off of rubbing up against him and the sweat that he had coming off of. This dude can drink beer like nobody I've ever seen, and I don't think to this day it's stopped. That's why he's got the Fat Boy Fit Club.
That's right. I think he's put that on a little bit of hiatus. Haven't seen that.
Yeah, I know.
I forgot about that. But we got tons more coming up here from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, Indiana Sports Beat with Coy O'Leary. Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier will join us next. Stay tuned. Back with that, plenty more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make it tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
This is former Indiana basketball player Brian Evans, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Coyle Leary with you here on this Monday. Coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Joined now by Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier. Hope all is going well. Hope everybody's doing well. Mike, how are you, sir?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Having a good time. Me and Todd been sitting here talking about all the things that happened on Saturday. The one thing we haven't talked a lot about is the game itself, which had enormous implications on the remainder of Indiana's season and how that end of that season is going to go. They've got themselves in a pickle of sorts right now, Mike.
Yeah, you're going to stick me with talking about the game, huh?
Yes.
There for a little bit at halftime, I almost forgot that there was a game, but we were harshly reminded in the second half. I mean, I wrote this morning that those were two halves surrounding a great moment that really weren't worthy of the history of this program, and it's becoming very, very troubling in my estimation. I mean, I don't think you can at this point any longer talk about only, how are we going to fix this team this season? How are we going to get back to rebounding and free throws and things like that appeared to be an identity early on. Now I think you're starting to creep into the conversation of what in the hell's going on with this program. I mean, I think there's just a sustained level of mediocrity, a sustained level of not making progress. That's the key word I keep getting stuck on is, where is the progress with this team?
Well, there's that, and Todd, there's so much change. We talked, we brought it up numerous times how Archie talked in Evansville how things were going to be, and then we're not quite seeing that. Larry texted in and asked, what are the advantages, disadvantages of the high screen offense compared to the motion offense that Coach Knight used? I don't understand why it has changed so much.
Yeah, I mean, when you want to talk about I'm really going to only be able to talk about the negative differences in it because the ball is going away from the basket so much. Like that offense is difficult for me to comprehend a lot of times what they're trying to accomplish. In Coach Knight, one of the things that you have, why is it difficult to learn the motion offense for Coach Knight when it's so easy? All you do is screen and cut and move, and it's kind of dictated by what the defense does as to where you go. So it sounds pretty easy, except for the difference is you have to have a purpose for everything that you do. And that means every pass has to have a purpose. And when you go through film session the next day, you've got to be able to answer the question, why did the ball go here? Why did you throw this guy the ball? And I mean every pass, every single pass. So when I see Rob Finney throw the ball 5 feet away to him to Trace Jackson Davis and then go get it back from him right away and then turn around and dribble back the direction he just came from, I can't tell you what purpose that could possibly have other than trying to get into a certain position. But just none of it makes any sense to me. So I never played in a system like that. I don't understand it. I'm sure there is an answer for it, but I sure don't have it. And it's not working right now. So, what do you do when things aren't working? It's time to try something different.
Yeah, and the time to do that is quickly running out on Archie.
Yeah.
I think they have 8 games left. And 4 of which they must win their home games. There's no doubt you have zero margin for error now, if you even have a sliver of that, Mike. And so their tournament lives are on the line every minute of every game from here forth.
Yeah, there's just no doubt about that. I mean, what are we talking about now? 4 home wins get you to 9-11 in the league. I mean, that feels like it's good enough, but historically it hasn't been. I mean, you could still be talking about a situation where you have to win a game in the Big Ten tournament, which we know how that story goes with Indiana, irrespective of who the coach has been. So you're exactly right. There's no margin for error right now, and Indiana just doesn't look like a team that can function in that sort of environment. They've got a lot of error that they're dealing with right now, and I just don't see them. You look at this remaining schedule, and I could see things getting really ugly, more so than I could see them turning a corner. It's not a schedule where you're going to just find yourself here unless something dramatically changes. And I think to Todd's point, at some point you're just you're feeling kind of silly to keep expecting things to change when you see the same thing playing out over and over and over.
That's kind of the definition of insanity, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Well, and the one thing that we have seen it go negative. We have seen the whole, everything turn south and be very difficult on them. And we've not seen them turn it around and do great things yet. So it's easier to think that it's going to go the bad way because we've seen that happen before and with this staff and, a lot of these players. So that, and I don't want it to go that way. And I honestly, for some reason, have this glimmer of hope in me that I really think they're going to turn it around and be good. It just has to, like they're at the time. It has to happen right now. It can't wait.
And I guess,
go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was just going to ask Todd. I mean, I think going into last week's game, there was a lot of talk from Archie after Ohio State of, they have a week to prepare, that a lot of things need to change. And nothing really stood out to me as dramatically different. They went with the same lineup. It was a lot of the same, as the caller mentioned, same high ball screen actions. I just, nothing really stood out to me, but I don't know with your more keen eye, Todd, if anything did stand out.
Well, I've said it, I've watched it on film now. I didn't get to see it live that much because we had so many interviews and things to do back at Cook Hall. But in watching, a lot of what happened, here's that I see something drastically different is going to have to happen. And because when you watch the game, I mean, you see how Matt Painter and Purdue, game planned to make it difficult for Indiana to score. And I mean, they're just packing the lane in. You can say, hey, they've got to start driving the ball and get to the free throw line. There's nowhere to drive. Like there is nowhere to go. I was trying to, I'm trying to analyze on how they can get themselves back to the free throw line because that's the easiest way to score points. But man, teams are just packing it in and they're taking away driving lanes. When I say that, I mean, they're not like all standing inside the lane, but they are definitely shading towards the ball and they are taking away the driving lanes. And so I don't know what, I don't know right now. Something drastic is going to have to change and they're going to have to accomplish something that all of us right now can talk about later after we see it, but I don't think we can predict it because I just haven't seen these guys' ability to be able to step out and hit shots and, drag the defense outside the lane.
Not intending to change the topic a little bit, but Michigan State is going through something that lands programs in this position right now. They just lost Mark D'Antonio, their longtime head coach. Obviously, he was, it was not a voluntary leaving. I'm pretty certain about that. But now they've had 4 different coaches turn them down already. they've got to get the guy into place, because if you don't, then a program can backslide really quickly, especially in football like that. So Indiana's kind of in that position because of not having the right guy in the right place, it seems sometimes. But that can happen to a program very quickly. Michigan State could be in a position that could happen to them if they're not careful.
Yeah, I'm glad you changed the subject to football, since we're a football school here. I think it's a much more I think it's a much more optimistic topic, but no, I think what you're really saying is, that's the risk Indiana runs right now. And I think, I asked John Beeline that question last year, because people may not realize this because he's looked upon very favorably now, but he had 4 really bad years, worse than what Archie's going through in his first 4 years at Michigan, and they stuck with him, and he ultimately got it turned around. And I asked him, what has to happen and to change the direction. And the first thing he said is culture, which, it's kind of cliche, but it did happen, but it's a lot harder to do. It's not like, running an offense or something like that that's more tangible. But the second thing he said is, to your point, Jim, is it's, other teams have to kind of fall back. If you're continuing to battle the same teams and trying to overcome them, that can create its own challenges in and of itself. And especially in a year like we're seeing right now, where there's just no breaks on the Big Ten schedule, trying to find your identity or even a culture in that sort of environment is tougher than it probably normally would be in any other season.
Yeah, and so both programs need to get things turned around, because you're looking at letting traditions go away and all of that, and people fight for years to get it there, and fans they get used to that, and Indiana fans obviously they were used to quality every year when Todd was playing, when Bob Knight was here, when even other coaches were here, and to not have that is just it sticks in your crawl, man.
Yeah, here's something that might blow some people's mind, and I went in depth on kind of the history of Indiana's program, because I didn't intend to do this, but as I started to get into it, it quickly came to realize that this current little era of IU basketball is a lot worse in the historical context than I thought it was. Indiana has never had, or hasn't had, a 4-year stretch in Big Ten play where they didn't at least have one season above 500 since going back to 1918. They're looking at that 4-year stretch right now. It seems like we're on pace to do that. So, we're talking about 100-year type differences, things that go back to, when basketball didn't even resemble what we know it now. People have talked about the Lou Watson teams, not making the NCAA tournament for 4 straight years. But the reality of that is that, some of those teams that he had, especially the George McGinnis team, would have made today's NCAA tournament easily. Those were teams that, if you extrapolate their winning percentage out to a 31-game season, would go like 22-9 overall, 13-7 in the Big Ten. So when you really compare apples to apples, historically, what we're going through right now, I think most Indiana fans, even the oldest ones, have never really seen a level of mediocrity that is this extensive. And so when you hear people getting impatient, it becomes hard to argue with them.
And you hear people like Todd, who's talks about this really means something to him. I sit here with him every day, and I know that to be a fact. I can tell this matters to him. It matters when he played, but it matters when he doesn't play. Today matters to him, and it matters to a lot of those other guys from then. I'm not sure that same thing is there, Todd, with these guys. I'm not talking about any individual, but you know what I'm saying. I'm not sure that these kids today have that same loyalty, locked in love for where they are.
Right. Yeah, no, they don't, not to rip on them or be on them. They just don't understand it. It's a different world today, and there's not the same, you don't pick your school for the same reason that you did back then. And, but it's so funny. Like I didn't know that statistic, Mike, that you were getting ready to give there. And it's so funny to hear the way you talk about that, because this is the statistic that we used to always say so positively, is when I graduated in 1994, there's not a single player in Coach Knight's era that didn't at least win a Big Ten championship or a national championship. And now we're given a stat where there might be 4 years in a row they don't even make the tournament. Right. And it's just like, I just, that having the program be in that position that it is today, you know, I know things are different. I know players are different. I know the systems are different. The game itself is different. I understand all that. But it's time to make some of the stuff the same and get it back to where it was. And however that has to happen is what needs to happen.
Yeah, because people can talk all they want, but you can look at teams like Louisville or Dayton or Illinois who have also had to go through changes, but they're heading in the other direction.
The difference, you know, we've talked about this, and we did it last week a bunch, is, you know, if Indiana struggled, I know the schedule was easy early on, but if they had struggled in November a little bit and we saw some improvement in December, and then January, you know, you kind of saw the light bulb go on and they started getting a lot better. And now almost mid-February, they're on an uptick and you can tell they're playing better and things are going. March is going to be fun and exciting. We can all live with that. The record could be worse than it is right now. We would all take that scenario over what we have right now, because right now they're getting worse. Every game, it seems like they're playing worse, and that's not acceptable. That doesn't happen at the good programs.
Well, Ryan up in Michigan, he's certainly in the positive mode. He says, I'm predicting IU men's basketball will finish 7-1 to close the regular season. I know they have been struggling, but I know that it will click and they will get it together. Well, that would be great if that happens.
7-1?
That's pretty ambitious for a team that is doing what they're doing right now.
I am.
He also asked where you can find after the game. That's on Facebook Live, Ryan. You can find it there. So go ahead.
I feel like I'm insane by thinking that they're going to go 5-3. And so 7-1. Just we'll call him in. We'll fly him in and have him in as a special guest if they can go 7-1. That he predicted that. But I'd take 5-3 right now, and I think that'd get him in the tournament.
Absolutely. 4-4 will get them in the tournament. If they win 4 out of their last 8 games, as sad as it sounds, that will get them in the tournament. I'm pretty convinced of that. But I don't know that they can go 4-4. I honestly don't. I think sadly, and I don't want this to be the case, I'm thinking it may be 3-5. I don't know that they can beat Iowa. Iowa's playing so damn well right now. They're like, we've talked about this. They're like Indiana of old. They're solid. They're fundamentally sound. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They've got good guard play, and they've got Luka Garza, who's a freaking beast inside.
Yeah, I mean, they can shoot, so that makes them scary. But they've also got the best player, the best scoring big man in the country for sure. So I mean, they to me are. I've said it all along. I was surprised they got beat the other day. Obviously by Purdue, but that was kind of a fluke the way that whole thing happened with 19 3-pointers being made by Purdue. But I still think Illinois or Iowa is up there with Illinois and Maryland as the top 3 teams in the league. And you know, it doesn't matter how bad they got beat the other day. Iowa is one of the tougher teams to beat.
Mike, you got anything else that the fans need to know about that you got out?
Well, I encourage people to go take a look at what I've been talking about here, just about how this current team and this current state of the program fits into the historical context of what people have grown accustomed to. I think some people may not disagree with it, and I welcome that debate.
So they may not agree with it, you mean?
Agree or disagree, bring it on.
He's shocked that they're going to they may not disagree with it. You sound surprised. Oh, I'm sure you'll find agreement and disagreement in all corners. Don't worry about that right now. But we cannot thank you enough for joining us as always, brother. We appreciate you, and we'll look forward to doing it again next week.
All right, guys. Have a great one.
See you, bud.
There's Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier joining us. Man, I got 1,000 text messages on the text line. 81. Now, some of these are from the other day. Alan Hughes was getting primed at Bubba's for the game. Oh, hey, he's got him a PBR sitting there. So thank you. I guess that was homage to the postgame show.
That was our after the game sponsor.
They were the beer of the day for Best Beer Incorporated. Let's see. Yeah, so she already asked some of those questions, but yeah, so good. Now, Dr. J said this. Now, he was kind of hitting on Buckner a little bit. He said Buckner sounded like it was all his brainchild on ESPN that he pulled up. I'm not saying it was my idea, but it was my idea kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, he was
very instrumental, very instrumental.
Let's put it this way. If there's one guy that I'm going to say as a former player would say, hey, coach, I want you to go do this. And coach say, yeah, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't think I want to. And Quinn come back at him and say, well, yeah, I think you are going to do it. Quinn would be the guy who would do that. And Quinn, coach is not making a lot of his own decisions right now, and because of his health. And I don't say that in any other way than as respectfully as I can. And Quinn was very instrumental in being a part, making sure that all of this happened, and it happened in a short span, but he was he's one of the guys. He and Whitman and Karen Knight are probably mostly responsible for this happening.
Yep, I got plenty of text to get to when we come back. Forrest is hitting us up from South Georgia. He does a good job of that. We got plenty to talk about to close it out. We're going to talk about the net rankings. We haven't done that yet either, man. Indiana drops 11 spots to number 60. They're in perilous land right now. We'll see. We'll talk about all that and their NCAA tournament hopes when we come back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios here on Indiana Sports Beat with Coy O'Leary. Back right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hey, this is Jordan Halls, former Indiana Hoosier. Keep up with Indiana sports on Indiana Sports Beat.
The world is the world.
studios. Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary with you here on this Monday. I'm Jim Coyle, of course. Running mate Todd Leary on the vine as well. A text in from South Georgia's Forest. I think it's time to make Durham and Green role players and Justin Smith on a short leash. Roll with the players Archie recruited. Let chips fall where they may. I don't think Rob is the answer at point right now. Not mentally or physically tough enough. Thoughts? Would be interested in Todd's thoughts as well. Well, there you go. There's a take.
Run those down one by one again.
I agree with the first three. Durham and Green, role players. Justin Smith on a short leash. There's a start. I don't know that you can make Al Durham a role player, but
yeah, I mean, you're going to run out of players if you.
Yeah, you got to have somebody to do it, even though they're not doing what you need them to do. You have to find a way to get them to do the things you need to do. That's the problem. And
I think Al, Al is a guy who can be a difference maker, and that is
and has been.
He's proven that he can do some things. I mean, I think he's trying. I don't think this offense is best suited for him.
Who is this offense suited for is the question.
Yeah, I mean, Dwayne Wade's of the world, and, some guys like that. Victor Oladipo in today's life would be good in this one. I mean, guys who can get their own shot and create their own shot. And
you mean elite players?
Here's part of maybe I need to say it this way, okay? And this is coaches are always going to say, and I played on the outside, so. I never fully bought into this, but I get the idea of it is you've got to play through the inside. Well, look, Trace Jackson Davis is a great player. I love watching him play. He is so strong with the basketball for a freshman. It's incredible, but he's not a great player with his back to the basket. He doesn't score the majority of his points throwing it in with your traditional post move with his back to the basket and making a move. Neither does Joey Brooks. Well, Joey Brooks scores a lot of his points that way. But that's not like we don't score on a high efficiency level doing that. Like he's not great at it. And he never has been. And he doesn't have the athletic ability to be able to do that. He's good at pounding defensively. He can bang with guys. All of that is true. Like he comes up with some good rebounds. All of those statements are true. But I think Indiana needs to get away from playing inside out. Or no. Hold on. I said that dead wrong. Not playing it inside out. They need to get away from dumping the ball into the post all the time. Because good things are not happening when they do that. And, Joey Brunk we don't need to run our offense through Joey Brunk in the post. We need to run our offense through guys cutting and screening and getting open and finding a driving lane to the basket and kicking it to guys for 17-foot jump shots, not 24-foot jump shots.
It seems as though they are dumping it into the paint, like you said, but without a plan or a rhyme and reason is what happens next.
Yeah, you watch the first couple of plays of every game, and they're going to run a little weave back and forth or whatever, and then they're going to dump the ball in the post. Then watch what happens at that point. All four guys on the floor, other than the guy with the ball, stand there and watch him. As opposed to cutting away and screening and getting somebody else open. When's the last time we said there was a guy on an Indiana team that worked really hard throughout the game to get somebody else open? Like, where's our Cree Smith? Where's our Brian Sloan? Where's our screeners of the world? Where's our Todd Myers? Where's our guys that are going to go? Matt Nover was probably the most talented, great screener that Indiana had. I say most talented because he could also score. Like he was a good scorer. You throw the ball into the post, he was going to make a move. He could make an 18, 19-foot jump shot. But he also, with that big square shoulder body, he could set a screen that, I could get open using Matt Nover all day long. And where are our guys that take pride in doing that stuff? And that's where, until we have guys that take pride in sacrificing their numbers to get somebody else open, our offense is going to continue to struggle. And I'm not trying to turn it into Hoosiers 1951 basketball, but there are teams who show you can still move without the ball and set screens away from the basketball.
Absolutely. I mentioned the net rankings earlier. Indiana dropped another 11 spots, and they are now 61st, which that is obviously a tenuous position to be in. But they are one of only 3 Big Ten teams that are outside the top 40, along with Nebraska and Northwestern. That is where Indiana is spending their time.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to say I don't understand the net rankings, because even a week ago when they were 50, everyone, Joe Lenardi's of the world, all the people who we trust their predictions because most of the time they come true, still had Indiana solidly in the tournament
at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, how could you be 50th and still be solidly in the tournament? I mean, there's going to be
60. They take 68 teams. So.
Yeah, but they don't take the top 68.
Right, because you got the conference champions and all that.
Right. So I mean, there's going to be a whole bunch of teams.
Well, the net rankings are not like it's not a solid here. You boom. It kind of gives you a little bit of a guide. So there's some leeway, but they had enough wins to still be in the tournament, I guess. But those good wins have all been eroded now, and all that goodwill is lost. So now they're in, according to Joe Lenardi, they're in the last 4 in at the moment. But that's him saying, all right, I'm going to give you a break here.
Right.
And let you make your own way from here.
Right. I feel like last week they gave us look, we're going to give you one last chance. And then this week they're going, okay, look, we're going to give you one more last chance to stay.
I'm going to count to 3.
Yeah.
2.5.
2.5. Yeah, we're at 2 3/4 right now.
And it's exactly where we are. 2 3/4 right now. It's exactly right.
They've got to make some hay here. And they've got, here is the awesome part of Indiana's remaining schedule is all the teams that are right around them. So would you agree with this statement? Wisconsin, Ohio State, Michigan, and Indiana are not all going to make the tournament. You agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you exactly right now, if I had to pick, it would be Wisconsin that does make the tournament out of those 3.
But 4. If you're saying that all of those teams can't make it, Indiana's remaining schedule includes twice against Minnesota, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So they've got the opportunity to separate themselves and put themselves above those schools that we're talking about. I mean, Ohio State's the only one they don't play in that group. And so, the game at Michigan is going to be huge. That's, they play Iowa at home this Thursday, and then Sunday they're at Michigan. So, next Monday we're going to have an idea as to where this team is. And we'll know if they've got to have a miracle to get in or if they're still kind of on pace a little bit to make it.
Let's, only just for argument's sake, they need a miracle to get in. That's going to be difficult for Archie to coach because there's no way the pressure will not be at its highest that it has been since he's been here. That's the highest pressure he's ever endured.
Yeah.
He didn't have that at Dayton. He didn't have that problem at Dayton. And so now he's struggled ever since he came to Indiana, and it's going to get harder and harder. And now, not with a lot of people questioning the players, they're whether they're playing hard, man, how do you get these guys to do that when now you're in that situation? It's gone from bad to worse.
No, it has. I mean, it's gone from that. That's why, I don't know. I mean, it's just different. I feel like there were games that we played in, back in the day. I feel like there was games that we played in that we just had a different pace to how we ran out on the court for warm-ups and how we warmed up and how we started the game. And I just feel like there's games we knew we had to win and we had to play on edge. And this team's got to finish the season on edge. Like, it has to do that for an extended period of time. And it's just, I mean, I don't know. We've not seen any inkling of this team being able to accomplish that. That's talent-wise, I think they can do it. Coaching-wise, I think they can do it. I just don't think they have yet. So they don't have that experience to fall back on and learn from. And I don't know. All signs point negatively, unfortunately, even though, I think Indiana fans are the ultimate optimists in thinking we're always going to turn it around and right up until the last minute.
Yeah. And you look at things, fans, and I learned so much being around you. Fans, their perception of things, their thought processes, it's not that they're wrong. It's just a lot of times people are not informed of a lot of things that go on behind the scenes, or how this is done this way and this is why that. And just like the players not getting to watch Bob Knight the other day. I don't know what they really could have learned in that locker room. Obviously, it didn't help them, whatever it was. So why not, with an extended halftime period, let them take part of that. Try to get something into them, because whatever you're doing is not working. Why not try anything? And we've talked about trying Cooper Bybee, something crazy. Why not? What? And right now I do say, what the hell does Archie Miller have to lose of trying to shake something up, even if it's just to try to send a message to some player on his team by starting a Cooper Bybee or playing a Cooper Bybee over someone else, just to shake things up? Because I don't know what to do, obviously, but I'm trying to think and throw it against the wall. What can work?
I mean, the lineups. I think that's been proven to us that that's not going to change. And I've been to practice, so I will say, I'm not 100% sold that would make a difference either. So I'm not saying that that's something that should be done. But nobody would blame Archie Miller for trying it. That's for sure. But one thing I will agree with for sure, and you and I talked about this, so we both agree on it, is that this team, what happened on Saturday with Coach Knight and the former players, I mean, that's special. I mean, that's something that's not going to happen every season. And this team needed something. They need something to turn their mindset around, turn them around, and maybe possibly seeing. I mean, here's one thing you can't deny: Isaiah Thomas was a great player at Indiana, won a national championship in '81, but then went on and had an unbelievable pro career and was an NBA All-Star and is listed in the top 50 best players of all time, blah, 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 all of that. Well, he's an alumni and a former player and was there, on the court. And these players, if there's one name they're going to recognize, the current players that are there, it's going to be Isaiah Thomas, and he's there. So I would have, had I been involved in the coaching decisions, I would have had the players out there watching what a special moment that was. As you said, I don't think there's anything that's going to happen inside the locker room that was going to that they would have felt like they missed out on. I mean, I think being out there on the court and seeing what a big deal Indiana basketball is to so many people, I think not seeing it kind of probably raised the question of what's going on. Why is it so crazy out there? And I would have made him a part of it. That's my difference.
Tim said Knight's pregame speech helped Jerome Hunter. He had 10 points.
Well, I mean, yeah, people are going to make funny comments about that. Look, I love Coach Knight. I'll support Coach Knight till the day I die. Coach Knight's not mentally healthy enough, physically healthy enough to be given any. I know Tim's just trying to be funny, but Coach didn't make the decision to be there on Saturday. He's not capable of making that decision right now.
Yeah, but luckily for Indiana fans and Hoosier Nation, it happened, and so hopefully the healing can start and things can turn around. But man, we got a lot to get to this week. Tomorrow on the program, of course, Chronic Hoosier will join us, and then on Wednesday, Coach Jeff Mercer, Indiana's baseball coach, will join us live as they will be down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to take on LSU to open the baseball season on Wednesday. Crazy, man. I can't believe.
That's just fun and awesome. I mean, they're coming off a great season, and they're coming off tons of momentum, and that's just a really fun way to – I mean, look outside. There's snow on the ground outside right now. You don't think you wouldn't rather be in Baton Rouge?
Hell yeah.
I can assure you they would.
I guarantee it, man. Some gumbo and etouffee.
You guarantee?
Guarantee. That's exactly it, man. A little just on. Perfect. Man, we can't thank everybody enough. It was great getting to hear from Randy Whitman and Keith Smart. Cannot thank Don Fischer enough, and, of course, Mike Schumann for joining us as well. But more importantly, we can't thank the fans enough, man. Without you guys, none doesn't work. But thanks a lot. We appreciate you. We're back tomorrow. For Todd, Larry, and for Jake, I'm Jim Boyle. I will see you on the radio.